Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is November 11th, 2025, Remembrance Day. And so it is, we should remember because I feel we have forgotten and I fear that they want to convince us to go to war again for more globalist goals, and I'm just not on board for any of that. So we're going to do a lot to start the show for Remembrance Day. We're going to have Don Cherry, and we're going to go back in time and have a look at what they thought about the cenotaph being unveiled in 1920 in England, and what people thought about what was going on then and what I think about it now. So we'll start there. 15-year car loans introduced by Trump. Oh, Yahtzee. What? Yes, let's ruin our economy more. You know what I heard you love? Low monthly bills. So we'll make low monthly bills, but a lot of interest. So everybody wins, right? You'll be able to get a car. The bank will make lots of money. Woo! It's a terrible idea, but hey, some things Trump does are bad, and some things Trump does are less bad, I guess. They want to institute a soft draft on public servants. And when I read the news article, I thought this army of public servants was going to do something on their computers to figure out how to increase the ability to attract people to the military. No. What they're doing is they're targeting their bloated public service to directly draft those people to increase the number of active troops or available troops to 100,000 people or something like that, something in that area. So they're drafting Karen from accounting. It's the most hilarious, worst idea I've ever heard. I can't believe it's real. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. We're actually doing this. So this is going to be something. It's going to be something else. I mean, can you imagine a real sergeant being in charge of a group of office workers? I don't feel really comfortable with this weapon right now, officer. Right? Can we talk about it? This is not going to go well at all. So it's going to be super fun to watch. I hope they stream it on YouTube. CSIS threatens Laura Southern in order to influence her to flip on her American counterparts. So like Tim Pool and stuff. Weird. And it's a bombshell audio, and poor woman. Holy smokeronies. It is a backbone and a half to stand up to the onslaught that she seems to have stood up to. So good for her. And wow, just jaw-dropping stuff. Air traffic controllers news. Buttigieg goes after Trump. And Trump goes after, I guess his name is Buttigieg, I guess is his name. I don't know. And Trump makes fun of him, and I think Trump gets the better of the exchange. Buy Canada, whether you like it or not, whether it's more expensive or not, we're going to deal with that. Mark Carney's new budget is introducing a whole bunch of stuff, including the digital ID infrastructure, where they're hoping nobody's going to find it. And this thing's going to pass, guys. I'm sorry. I hope I'm wrong, but holy smoke. Everything that I'm looking at right now says it's passing with flying colors, no problems at all. Olympics ban all trans athletes from female events after finding evidence. This is a quote, evidence of advantages of being born a man or being born male. That's hilarious too. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. The hilarious stories are later. Here's Don Cherry to remind us about November 11th, and lest we forget. And as I've said before, I fear we have forgotten, and I think that they're trying to seed the ground for people to be upset with the status quo and or want to spread freedom and democracy in Ukraine or something like that. We have to save the Ukrainians from Russia or something like that. Meanwhile, we don't have a standing army. We're going to send our office workers to Ukraine. Okay, this is the plan, because the jobs prospects aren't looking so good after this whole Trump at USMCA thing next year. So what are we going to do? We're going to pay people to join the army. All right. This is a terrible idea. Anyway, lest we forget, here's Don Cherry.
Here we are, November 11th. We're in Trelinkin British Cemetery in France. On November 11th, I want everybody to remember when you're buying a poppy and you see row after row of our Canadian dead here. And I'm going to put here, we visited Thomas William Mackenzie, Military Medal and Bar, Canadian Field Artillery. He died 7 days before the end of the war, 27 years old. So when you're walking by and you see our great legions guys standing there and they offer you a poppy, think of all this. These guys gave their lives. At least you can buy a poppy.
All right. And Don Cherry was canceled for lamenting that people are forgetting, and this is years ago now, and not wearing a poppy. And he said the least you can do is wear a poppy. Go get a poppy. And he's got a point, right? Here is Maxime Bernier. He says, remember those who fought for our country, but also think about what those men would say if they saw the state of Canada today. We must make sure they did not die in vain. And so the PPC is sharing a video as well, but we're not going to watch the video right now. We've got lots of other show to get to. This is Bobby. She says, the unveiling of the cenotaph in London on 11th November 1920, colorized by Royston Leonard. So there you go. The cenotaph was draped in Union Jacks, right? And there was military, and it was snowing in England, and they were ready to unveil the cenotaph, right? The celebration of the end of the war and all of the rest. And, well, it's just interesting to walk back through time a little bit like this. Drew says, Remembrance Day, World War I shattered Western civilization, and we have arguably never recovered. The wars, both of them, the First World War and the Second World War, were made to smash the powerful families of Europe, paving the way for the invasion that's happening today. That's what happened. I wish I was wrong. Anyway, here's a BBC report from, this is an older one, and I'm not sure exactly when it aired, but it's a minute and it's worthwhile. So here we go.
World War I destroyed an entire generation. We don't know, and we can't even guess what might have been painted or written if the war had never happened. Its imagery of waste, repetition, irony, loss and pain is so built into our whole idea of modernity that we simply take it for granted. We can't see its alternative. As for the waste of minds, we know the names of some who were killed too soon. Among the painters, Umberto Boccioni and Franz Marc, the sculptor, Gaudier Breschka, the architect, St. Elia, the poets, Isaac Rosenberg and Wilfred Owen. But for every one of those whose name survives, there must have been scores and possibly hundreds of those who never simply got a chance to develop. And so, if you were to ask, where is the Picasso of England or the Ezra Pound of France, the probable answer is that they're here.
Lying in Flanders fields, right? Not able to do their work. And as I'm from Guelph and John McCrae is from Guelph and I'm broadcasting from Guelph today, here is John McCrae's In Flanders Fields as recited by Leonard Cohen. I figured he could do a better job than I could do. Here we go.
In Flanders fields, the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row that mark our place, and in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
So there you go. It is a sad state where I feel that on Remembrance Day, I can hear the drums of war echoing in the distance, right? And it is our own government that is sending money to continue wars, foreign wars that really don't have anything to do with Canada. It is our own government who are banging those drums that I hear, and it is our own government who want to seed the ground to make Canadians believe that we need to go to war somewhere and ignore the issues with our own country. The problems with the bad policy, the problems with the cultural decline, the problems with the social decline. We ignore all of that in favor of some international globalist nonsense to distract us where we have to bring freedom or democracy or some other nonsense to a foreign land while we watch our own country burn. And it's intolerable. I don't know how much longer we can carry on, but it benefits those in power to make us carry on and believe that the old world, and by old world, I mean the world I grew up in, the 90s and the early 2000s up to 2005, still exist. And they do not. They don't. And so the longer we pretend that they do, the worse things will be because we're not prepared for what's actually happening. I wish that I was wrong. Anyway, let's talk about the draft. This is more funny, but very concerning also. Because if you have Russia invading, do you want office Karens who are going to be defending you? I mean, at least somebody's got a gun, but this is not, the idea of a standing military is not, okay, we're in deep trouble here with the USMCA. How can we pay people to do something that doesn't sound like bullshit? Let's make them join the army. And what they're going to do is they're going to bolster people's salary. So if you make $100,000 or $90,000 or something like that, they're going to give you a $30,000 bump, and they're going to do some fancy tax trick or something or other that's going to make it the money worth it. And they're going to do weekends. It's going to be like if you joined reserve force, right? I knew guys who were in the reserve force after they were in the reg force. So they were regular army, and then they came out and then they joined the reserves and they maintained their rank, and it kept them in shape, and they just, they hang out with their buddies and stuff. And maybe it gave them extra years in for retirement or something like that. There was a reason they did it. But I'm sure that there will be some kind of tax benefit, some kind of like, oh, you're in the army now tax benefit. And like, boom, you can keep your $30,000. You can buy, tiny home or something like that. You can, get a loan for a tiny home. Okay, that's what you can do with your extra $30,000 a year. But that's going to be how they're going to convince these people. You want to raise? Or the other thing is, very recently, they have made announcements, City News, this is November 4th, 25, budget pledges to shrink the size of the public service by 40,000, but increase the size of the military by 100,000. So this is an easy transition. Phil, we need to see you in the office with the management and the unions there with us. We've got good news and bad news. The bad news is you're fired. The good news is we hear you've always wanted to be an Army Ranger. So we've got an opportunity for you. And the recruiter is here. Right here in the room with us to take all your information. And there's a car waiting just in case you decide that you do want to do this, right? So like they're shrinking the size of the public service, but also increasing the size of the military to 300,000. So easy, right? Easy. House of Commons staffer says, it must be one of the funniest headlines I've ever read, and not the Babylon Bee either. Canadian military will rely on an army of public servants to boost its ranks by 300,000. Federal public servants would be trained to shoot guns, drive trucks, and fly drones, according to Defense Department directive. They're going to bring in, I saw footage of a Ukrainian or Russian, some footage of somebody being trained on flying drones, like drones that are dangerous drones, and dangerous to, like, their weapons. And it looked like you're playing Street Fighter 2. Like, it looked like that kind of interface. You had a joystick and a couple of buttons, and you're, zipping around with whatever it is. It looked like a game interface. And so very Ender's Game for me. So I could believe that the Karens would be able to do that. But also, I saw there was a movie where somebody was a drone pilot and it messed with his head because he was watching the people die that he was killing from his bunker, wherever he was, and that messed with his head. So I would imagine that the office worker is going to have a hard time if they actually get called on to like do any military stuff. It'll be a hard time to flip back into office worker mode, right? Like, I don't know. It's just one of those things. Drive trucks. Yeah. Office workers. Whew, good luck. And shoot guns. Not going to happen, right? Again, I just imagine a sergeant whose previous experience has been, military men and or women, military people, and then they get like the office worker platoon, and like, man, where's the movie for this? Because it's going to be great. My gosh, this really happened, right? And I couldn't help but come up with a meme, right? The Anakin Skywalker meme. And he says, Canada needs to draft 100,000 troopers or 100,000 troops ASAP. And Padme says, who are you going to draft? Karen from HR? And then Anakin looks at her like, yes, that's exactly. And she says, oh my gosh, you're going to draft Karen from HR. So that's what's going on. And it's worse. If only we knew how bad it really is. Table Salt says, Major breaking: the Canadian military has identified federal and provincial government employees in Canada as the most suitable to bolster the supplementary army reserve force to 300,000. So when you stop laughing, they're serious. We will prioritize volunteer public service. We'll prioritize the volunteers, but hold on a second. Listen, have you ever played Street Fighter 2? Because we feel like you'd be really good at this, okay? Here's the actual real article from the Ottawa Citizen, published November 10th. That's yesterday, and we'll just read it together. The Canadian Forces is counting on public servants to volunteer for military service as it tries. Listen, we know you've decided to be a public service in the Canadian government. We know that's like your chosen job. However, we'd really like you to reconsider and join the army. This is just a targeted ad campaign. We'd really like you to volunteer for the army. You right now, right? Like, is this going to work? No, there's going to have to be some other incentives. There's going to be something else that they're going to add that's going to sweeten the deal. Because, hey, public servant, you look like you'd like to join the army. Isn't going to work. Okay. Federal and provincial employees would be given a 1-week training course on how to handle fire. 1 week. Oh my gosh. Quick, everybody, Russia's invading. Get your guns. What? Like, no, I didn't sign up for that. 1 week training course. Are you kidding me? 1 week training course on how to handle firearms, drive trucks, and fly drones. Okay, the 1 week training course is to do all of the things, right? It's not even 1 week just on firearms. You get a day and a bit, right? Like read your handbook tonight, and tomorrow we'll strip down this handgun. Sure. According to the directive signed by the Chief of Defense Staff, General Jenny Kerrigan, and the Defense Deputy Minister, Stephanie Beck. Stephanie? I think that's Stephanie Beck, on May 30th, 2025. The public servants would be included into the supplementary reserve, which is currently made up of inactive or retired members of the Canadian Forces who are willing to return to duty if called. At this point, this is the worst idea I've ever heard. There are 4,384 personnel in the supplementary reserves, but in case of an emergency, that would be boosted to 300,000, according to directives from Beck and Kerrigan. This is... How bad is it really? Because this doesn't seem like a viable plan. And if this is the best plan we've got, we're in some trouble, everyone. Like, I've got bad news. If any other country read our news and they read this, they might think to themselves, Canada, it's pretty rich, and I'm pretty sure we could take those guys. Like, that's not good. It's very bad news, everybody. While the supplementary recruiting push will prioritize volunteer public servants at the federal and provincial and territorial levels, the entry standards wouldn't be strict, according to the 9-page unclassified directive. What do you mean the entry standards wouldn't be strict? Prioritize volunteer public servants, but the entry stand... Oh, so like if you're overweight and can't actually, like say your hands are so fat you can't pull the trigger, that's okay, you can fly a drone. We're pretty sure you can mash those buttons. Like, it's not going to work out. The criteria for supplementary or other reserves should be less restrictive than the reserve force. This is great. This is great news, everybody. The overweight and like unhealthy Karens are going to be recruited, not just the regular Karens, but the unhealthy office workers, for age limits as well as physical and fitness requirements. So it's not going to be as restrictive. Wow. So I'm sure it gets worse than that. So in the context of reducing the public service, they need to switch them all over to military reservists. National Post says the Canadian Armed Forces must reclaim its warrior ethos. Unironically, published on the 9th. Yes, we're going to reclaim our warrior ethos. Come on in, Karen, right? Like, let's get you trained on this handgun here, or this rifle. The real Mr. Bench is responding to this whole thing too. He says, so to clarify, the Liberal government wants to take away the legal guns of Canadians, but our military wants to train 300,000 public service workers to fire guns to protect Canada. These are the same workers who demand that they be allowed to work from home as a commute is too hard for them. So, yikes, right? So we're not a serious country. And unfortunately, that's the best we got so far. How do we encourage recruitment? Let's go talk to the public servants. They'll do it for sure. We'll figure it out with the public servants. Yeah, right. Sounds like a great plan, you idiot. Oh my gosh. Okay, with that, we have to say goodbye to the stream. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you want the whole show, head over to CanadaPoly.com. If not, that's okay. I will be here tomorrow. So see you tomorrow. And for everybody else, we will carry on as soon as I finish the stream. And the stream is done. Good. And here we go. The budget is just as good as the plan to recruit the office workers. Raquel Dancho, who's an MP, says Fitch Ratings, one of the big three, she's an MP for the Conservatives. She says Fitch Ratings, one of the big three credit rating agencies, is warning that Canada's persistently large deficits and lack of a credible path back to financial normalcy may force it to downgrade Canada's credit rating. Deficits have consequences. The Carney government does not seem to care. And Fitch warns Canada of credit downgrade. There's bad news. That's bad news for mortgages. Credit downgrade means it costs more to service our debt. So like if you have a AAA store and Visa and MasterCard take payments as normal, it's 2.9% per transaction or something like that. If you have a higher risk store, then you have to get a higher risk payment gateway, and that payment gateway could charge double. You could be 5.9% on your per transaction rip. And so and there are other payment gateways that might charge even more, right? Stripe, I think, is it's comparable with PayPal, and they're all comparable with like major credit cards. There's kind of a normalization there. That's the industry standard. But for higher risk, it costs more to do that kind of thing. And the same thing is true of governments and mortgages. So if there's higher risk, then you pay more. So if we're not AAA, if we're AA or worse, then we get higher debt service costs. And that's the so what. And so that's bad. Like that's not so good. But nobody seems to care, and the plan is to draft office workers. So Cat Canada says Carney announces a Buy Canadian policy. He says we will be our own best customer with our new Buy Canadian policy. Whatever the government spends, we will select Canadian suppliers by default rather than using the current best